everyone. Let's start Recall Zoology with me, G. Trupti. So today's topic we are going to take, that is excretory products and their elimination. We know all the animals accumulate varieties of the waste materials in their body as the end product of metabolic activities or either due to the excess of ingestion. So what are those components? See, ammonia, urea, uric acid, CO2, water, and some ions are also there like sodium, chloride, potassium ions. Okay, apart from that, sulfate and the phosphate is also there, which is needed to remove either partially or completely. Okay, so in kingdom Animalia, based on what is the major nitrogenous waste excreted from the body of an animal, three different types of animals are there. As you know, right from 10th class you are doing this, you know three different types of animals will be there in the animal kingdom: ammonotelic, ureotelic, and the uricotelic. So based on the three different types of nitrogenous waste, are ammonia, urea, and uric acid. You know, out of these three, urea is the highly toxic nitrogenous waste. It needs more volumes of water to get excreted completely, definitely, as compared to urea. Urea is lesser toxic as compared to the ammonia, and comparatively it needs less amount of water to get removed from the body completely. And the last one, uric acid, the least toxic excretory waste you could call it as, and which need very least amount of water for its total removal from the body. So what are the animals in kingdom Animalia who are ammonotelic, ureotelic, and uricotelic? Let's see here. So the ammonotelic animals are those who are excreting nitrogenous waste in the form of ammonia. We will be getting the bony fishes, means the fishes which are staying mostly in the fresh water, you could say. Then aquatic insects and the aquatic amphibians. Actually, what are these bony fishes are there? They are removing the nitrogenous waste in the form of ammonium ions, because their kidneys won't be helping them much to remove the ammonia as it is. So in the form of ammonium, through the surface they will be removing the nitrogenous waste. Coming to the ureotelic organisms who are excreting the nitrogenous waste in the form of urea, you will be getting example including human being like mammals, terrestrial amphibians like frog, adult frog, you know, and the cartilaginous fishes, means marine fishes. They are the examples for the ureotelic organism. And the uricotelic, as I told, which is the least toxic nitrogenous waste, needs little amount of water. Examples are the reptiles, birds, insects like cockroach, you know very well, and the land snail. These are uricotelic. Okay, now we have to check what are the different types of structures used for the removal of this nitrogenous waste from the body. So let's go for the survey of kingdom Animalia with respect to excretory structure. So right from the porifera, if we start, truly speaking, for porifera, cnidaria, and ctenophora, there is no any special excretory structure present. So through the general body surface only, or you could say simply by the diffusion method, they are removing the nitrogenous waste from the body. First of all, first time you will be getting some special type of structure in the Platyhelminthes. So the structures which are helping for excretion in Platyhelminthes is flame cells. Okay, and these flame cells are helping for both excretion as well as osmoregulation. Coming to the Ascahelminthes, you will be getting renate glands or renate cells, you could call them as. Annelida, the best example you know, that is earthworm. You will be getting Nephridia, are the highly coiled structures, and they are also helping for both excretion and osmoregulation. Coming to the next largest phylum in kingdom Animalia, Arthropoda, you will be getting different types of structures there. In the Arthropoda, you will be getting crustaceans like crab, will be having antennary glands, or you could call them as green glands. You will be getting insects having Malpighian tubules for helping for the removal of nitrogenous waste. We have studied in the cockroach, hair-like structure, yellow in color, present at the junction of midgut and hindgut, they are present. Then Arachnida, in that examples you will be getting spider and the scorpio, they are having coxal glands for removal of the nitrogenous waste. Then coming to the second largest phylum, that is Mollusca, you will be getting feather-like gills which are helping for the respiration, and they are only helping for the excretion purpose. In Echinodermata, there is no any special structure which could do the excretion. Then directly when we check the Hemichordata, you know proboscis gland is there which is helping for excretion. And coming to the phylum Chordata, you will be getting kidneys, either mesonephric kidneys or metanephric kidneys. If you check fishes and amphibians, having mesonephric kidneys, and RAM, like reptiles, aves and mammals, they are having metanephric kidneys. Metanephric kidneys are more developed kidneys and who could produce more concentrated urine. So now see the human excretory system, the major components. So you will be getting in the human excretory system one pair of kidneys, one pair of ureter, a single sac-like structure known as urinary bladder, and a urethra. So here first of all we will check the kidneys, their location, their measurements. Okay, so here you are able to see like aorta is there, which is bringing the blood, and it is actually getting divided here into renal arteries, two renal arteries which are carrying the oxygenated blood, and the renal arteries are going inside the two kidneys. If you see the kidneys are the bean-shaped reddish colored structure present. What is their location? They are present from the, they are occupying last thoracic means T12 to the lumbar third. And this is the location, what is the position they are occupying. Last thoracic vertebra till the third lumbar vertebra, the total region is occupied by the kidneys. They are present on the dorsal sides of the abdominal wall, you could say. In a well-grown adult kidneys, the size will be 10 to 12 centimeters in length, 5 to 7 centimeters in width, 2 to 3 centimeter thickness is there, and approximately weight is 120 to 170 gram. So here you are able to see whatever bean-shaped kidneys are there. There you are able to get a notch-like structure known as hilum or hilus. From there, two ureters are moving down, and two ureters are getting open into a sac-like structure known as urinary bladder, which will be helping to store the urine. And then you are getting the urethra, which is having two sphincters. One is internal and one is external sphincter. Here you are able to see that inferior vena cava is there, which is getting divided into the renal veins also. Okay, whatever kidneys are there, kidneys you are able to see in the diagram, it is having an outer part known as cortex, and inside where you are able to see the pyramidal shaped structure, that region is known as medulla. Okay, one flow chart I want to tell you here, like the kidneys are the, you could say liver is the main place where urea is getting produced. We are ureotelic. So liver is the main place where ammonia is getting converted into somewhat less toxic nitrogenous waste, that is urea. The name of that cycle, you could call it as urea cycle, or you could call it as ornithine cycle. So from the liver, how it is coming to kidneys, like previous year questions are there. So one flowchart I have made. Okay, so you have to check here in this flowchart which particular vein or which particular artery where actually the concentration of urea is more, and how from the liver till the kidneys the urea is traveling for the filtration purpose. Okay, see, so we know liver is the place where via ornithine cycle the ammonia is getting converted into urea. From the liver, this urea will be going in the hepatic vein. Via hepatic vein, it will be going to the heart. So here I have written, like previous year question actually, you could say hepatic vein is the vein which is having maximum amount of urea. So whatever this hepatic vein is there, now it will be going via the vena cava to the heart. From the heart again it is going to the lungs for oxygenation. Again it will be coming back to the left atrium, means left part of the heart. From the heart again pumping will occur via aorta, then it will come into the renal artery, then via renal artery. So here we are able to see this renal artery. Renal artery will be carrying oxygenated blood, but definitely it will be carrying urea for the filtration purpose. So via renal artery, that blood which is having urea inside, it will be coming to the kidneys. Filtration will occur, and after filtration whatever leftover blood is there, it will be traveling via the renal vein. So here I have written renal vein will be having minimal amount of urea. So whatever this renal vein is there, via vena cava, again it will be going back into the circulation. Now we will check the LS of kidney, roughly the diagram. So here you are able to get the kidney's outermost region, outermost layer for the kidney is renal capsule. We know the kidneys are retroperitoneal organs, means they are getting covered on one side only by the parietal peritoneum. Okay, so whatever kidney is there, it is having two main parts as I told you earlier. Outer is cortex and inner part is known as medulla. So medulla is having number of pyramid shaped structure known as renal pyramids. Okay. Now here the main thing you could check here, whatever outer region is their cortex, it is going inside the spaces present in between two medullary pyramids. You could call them as the columns of Buttoney. Okay, you could see here like whatever functional unit of kidney is there, that is nephron. Nephrons will be here in this particular medullary pyramids in the cortex and the medulla region only. So whatever nephrons are there, like here I have shown one renal pyramid and arrangement of the nephron. So here you could say at the like whatever renal pyramids are there, at their apex region you will be getting many small calyces. So these major and minor calyces will unite to form an empty space here, that is known as renal pelvis. And here you could say urine, after formation of urine it will come here, and from the renal pelvis region it will be coming in the ureter, via ureter to the urinary bladder, urethra and outside. Okay. Now we will check here first of all the whatever functional unit of kidney is there, that is nephron, what it composed of. So here I have drawn the diagram of a nephron. So nephron you will be getting, it is having two parts, one that is known as Malpighian body, or you could call it as renal corpuscle, and another part that is renal tubules. Whatever Malpighian body is there or renal corpuscle is there, you could say it is having two components inside it. One is a Bowman's capsule, which is a cup-shaped structure, and another is a glomerulus. Okay. So what is this glomerulus? Okay. Before that I will say nephrons two parts, Malpighian body which is having the cup-shaped structure, Bowman's capsule and glomerulus, and renal tubule include the tubular structures like proximal convoluted tubule, distal convoluted tubule and the loop of Henle. Let's check what is the meaning of this Malpighian body. So what if this part is there, okay, which is having glomerulus and the Bowman's capsule is Malpighian body. One more point I want to tell you, what are these structures are there, like Malpighian body, PCT and DCT, you will be getting them in the cortex region. I repeat, Malpighian body, PCT and DCT, these structures are present in the renal cortex region, while what a loop of Henle is there, you will be getting that structure in the medulla region. Come to the point, that is Bowman's capsule and the glomerulus. What is glomerulus actually? So first of all, I told you earlier, whatever renal vein is there, renal artery is there, renal artery will come in the kidney, and renal artery will be getting divided into number of branches known as afferent arterioles. Whatever these afferent arterioles will be there, each one arteriole will be going to one Bowman's capsule, and after going again afferent arteriole will be getting divided into tuft, means network of the capillaries, and then again they will reunite and they will form another arteriole known as efferent arteriole. So renal artery, after coming inside the kidney, it is getting divided into number of afferent arterioles. Afferent arteriole is coming inside the Bowman's capsule and again getting divided. You could call it as glomerulus, this netted structure of blood capillaries, you could call it as glomerulus, and then it will be moving out in the form of efferent arteriole. You will be getting here one more structure I will clear. So efferent arteriole is moving out of the Bowman's capsule. We will check here whatever these efferent arterioles are there, they are moving and they are getting coiled or they are getting wrapped over the PCT and DCT. You could call these structures as peritubular capillaries. Efferent arteriole will be getting wrapped over the PCT and DCT, then you could call that capillary as peritubular capillary. One branch of this efferent arteriole will be moving around this particular, moving in the form of U-shaped structure around this loop of Henle, and that particular capillary you have to call it as vasa recta. So we are having two types of nephrons here in the kidneys. Okay, you could call them as cortical nephrons, which are present in majority, and another are the extramedullary nephrons. So just now I told you here that whatever three parts are there, that is Malpighian body, then PCT and DCT, they are present in the cortex region, while whatever the loop of Henle is there in the medulla region. Okay, and the loop of Henle is only going deep inside the medulla region. But actually here we are getting two types of nephrons. As I told you, 85% of cortical nephrons. Cortical nephrons are those whose Malpighian body is somewhere near to the kidney surface, while the juxtamedullary nephrons are those whose Malpighian body is present at the junction of cortex and medulla. So here you could say whatever cortical nephrons are there whatever loop of Henle will be there, it will be short, and you will be getting their vasa recta is reduced. Vasa recta is either absent or it is reduced one, and whatever peritubular capillaries are there, yes, definitely it is there for them. Whatever juxtamedullary nephrons are there, only 15 to 20% of nephrons are juxtamedullary. As I told you just now, they are present at the junction of the cortex and the medulla. So for them, whatever their vasa recta is there, you know what is the vasa recta? Vasa recta is the branch of this efferent arteriole which is wrapping over the this particular region, that is loop of Henle. Okay, so whatever these juxtamedullary nephrons are there, only 15 to 20%, you could say their vasa recta is highly developed. They are having peritubular capillaries also, and their loop of Henle is going deep inside the medullary region. It is long. Okay, now we will be checking, we have to check the cells present in this particular region. So let me start with the Bowman's capsule. Okay, in the Bowman's capsule, which is a cup-shaped structure, it is having two layers. One is outer layer, you could call it as parietal layer, and inner layer is known as visceral layer. Parietal layer, outer layer is made up of simple squamous epithelial tissue, and for visceral layer, please remember, because this is a previous year question, what a visceral layer is there of this particular Bowman's capsule. It is also simple squamous epithelial tissue, but it is modified simple squamous epithelial tissue looking like finger-like projection. You could call them as podocyte cells. So see here I have drawn one small rough diagram. Okay, so please remember, Bowman's capsule's visceral layer is having modified squamous epithelial tissue, modified epithelial cells known as podocytes, which are having finger-like projections. So it will be wrapping over the fenestrated endothelium. Okay, so we will check in again the filtration membrane. Then you will be getting the tubular parts, PCT, DCT, and the loop of Henle. What are the cells present here? As you know very well, what are PCT is there? PCT is having simple cuboidal epithelium with a brush border over it. Means microvilli are there, so that maximum absorption happens in the PCT only. In the DCT also, you will be getting simple cuboidal epithelial tissue. There is no microvilli, there is no any brush border. Coming to the loop of Henle, loop of Henle is having this part known as descending limb of loop of Henle. This is the descending limb, and this is the ascending limb of loop of Henle. So the descending limb of loop of Henle is there. You will be getting simple squamous epithelial tissue. Even in the ascending limb is having two parts. One is a thin limb, and the upper part, you could say it is a thick part. So till the thin limb, you will be getting simple squamous epithelial tissue, and what a thick portion is there of this particular ascending limb of loop of Henle, you will be getting simple cuboidal epithelial tissue. And overall, later on I could say, like transitional epithelial tissue is there in the urinary system of our body, that is especially in the ureter, urinary bladder, and the little part of urethra.